Welcome, folks, to another edition of Maximum Life with yours truly, Michael Norman. I'm so excited to be with you on this broadcast because I've got some very important information I want to share with you today concerning the power of fear and its impact on not only your health but your finances as well. And so, if you can, grab a pen, pad, and tablet or whatever and take some notes today as I'm going to share with you some very powerful and yet practical concepts that's going to help you overcome fear and walk into a greater manifestation of the things you desire. You've got to start with the idea that God wants you to have more, that it is God's divine desire for all of us. According to Scripture, and as you know, everything I share is going to be by virtue of Scripture, and that is this: that it is God's desire that you prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prosper. So that means that there's a certain link between prosperity, in terms of finances, in terms of relationships and things of that nature. There's a link between that prospering and your soul prospering, which is basically your emotions and your state of being. And so we're going to deal with that today, concerning the area of finances again, because this is the one thing that everybody is dealing with. Everybody has come in a situation where they're dealing with money issues of some sort, whether you're at minimum wage or you're making six, seven, eight figures. There's always an issue with finances because, again, what happens is the more we make, the more we tend to spend. So it doesn't matter if you make minimum wage or you're making 6 to 7, 8 figures a year or a day. If your expenditures outweighs your income, then you're basically in the same basic ship as far as poverty goes. And so I want to share with you fears that will impact your finances. And it will impact every area of your life, as a matter of fact. But today I want to deal with the issue of how it impacts your finances. So again, I want to share with you a verse of scripture that comes from the Bible, because again, that's my source for revelation and information. But again, this is not an attempt to make you more religious or you more Christ-like, but it is an attempt to, at least it makes you aware of the fact that God does want you to prosper, and He's not just a God that sits on a throne and demands your undying praise, your never-ending worship, and all of that sort of thing without it having an impact on your daily life. And here's one of the things that He wants, again, as I mentioned earlier, for you to prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prosper. Because what does it matter if you prosper financially, but you're in the hospital, you're in the ICU or critical care? It doesn't matter that you're prospering. But when you have prosperity and good health, that's when life gets really good. So over in 2 Timothy, the first chapter, it talks about, for God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. That's 2 Timothy, first chapter. And again, this gives you insight to the mind of God as it relates to us and how He wants us to manage while we are here on earth. It's not just about going to church, because if that's all it takes to prosper and be in good health, then we'd all be in church every Sunday. But that's not the end game. The end game is so that you can gain some knowledge that you can begin to act upon and then get the correlating benefit from the actions that you take. But a lot of our actions that we're taking, if we're not careful, will emanate from a place of fear. And here's one of the most important things I've discovered is that, while I'm huge on affirmation, declarations, and decrees and things of that nature. I'm big on that sort of thing. But what I've come to realize is that your state of being is more powerful than the words that you state. Let me say that again, because I want to make sure you get this. Your state of being is more powerful than the words that you state. That means that you can be saying words that you don't actually believe, or it hasn't really resonated in your mind. In other words, you can repeat what you've heard and not have the same revelation that the person you heard it from had. There's another aspect in scriptures again where it says it's one guy is coming to Jesus and say, hey, I took my son to your disciples because he has these seizures and they weren't able to help him. And he says, well, okay, well, I will help him. He says, now all you got to do is believe. He says, I believe, but help my unbelief. Now, that sounds like a contradiction on the outside, because he's saying on one hand, I believe, but on the other hand, he's saying, I don't believe. So there's a contradiction and a conflict that's at work and at play. And so one of the things that you have to deal with is your unbelief. Whenever fear comes in, fear is faith. It is, matter of fact, every human being has faith. You don't have to go to church to gain faith. Faith comes by hearing. Hearing. What you hear over an extended period of time not only gets into your hearing, but it gets into your mind, and it affects your mindset. So your mindset will affect your assets. You get it? Your mentality will affect your reality. It's just the way that it goes. It's the way that it is. That you're not experiencing anything that you in your personal life. You're not experiencing anything that you've not already dealt with in your mental life. As a matter of fact, your personal life is only an external representation of your internal life. They go hand in hand. The quality of your life is directly related to the quality of the thoughts that you think toward yourself and towards life itself. It's a very simple formula, not as easy to manage and to function in it, because what we feel and what we think is so powerful, and oftentimes it's difficult to change our way of thought. That's the power of indoctrination. That's the power of brainwashing, because there are those who would love to change their circumstances, but they can't find the means to change their attitudes about their circumstances, in terms of what do I need to do that's going to afford and allow finances, that's going to allow happiness, that's going to allow peace and prosperity. What do I have to do to allow that to manifest in my life? I want you to understand that it is directly related to your mindset. Now, here's the challenge, because again, I've discovered that your mind, your mental thoughts, and your condition of your heart, not, and when I say heart, that's really speaking not of your per se your heart itself, as much as it's talking about the deepest recess of your conscience, your subconscious, as some would say. What you're thinking when you're not thinking. A good example of thinking when you're not thinking is, how many of you drove to work this morning without really thinking about how you're going to get there, in terms of the turns that you will need to make, the number of lights that you'll encounter? You did it without thinking, more than likely, because if you've been working for a period of time, it seeps, the directions that it takes to get to your place of work actually seeps down into your mindset or into your subconscious, to the extent that you don't necessarily have to pay attention. I would advise you to pay attention while you're driving. But the reality is, we've been doing it for so many days and so many weeks and so many months and so many years, till we can all tend to drive to work without really paying attention. And oftentimes that's why you see accidents occur on the highway, because not every day is going to be the same day. Because while you may be paying attention, others may not be paying attention, and you may have to encounter some kind of interaction with them, we'll call it. All right? But so what I want, the point I want to drive home to you in this video is, number one, to appreciate the power of fear. Fear is like a lighthouse that's saying, over here, guys, over here, come and get me. I'm over here. Because fear is faith, but it's faith for something that will do you harm. It's to your detriment. That's what fear will attract to your life. It will literally say to those things that you are fearful of, come get me. I'm over here. And so that's why you have to fight against this whole concept of fear, because again, it's a magnet. What you begin to magnify is the thing that you begin to magnetize. And the unfortunate thing is that when we're afraid of certain things, that's what we fixate on. That's what we begin to magnify. We blow it up oftentimes bigger than it actually is. We blow up the problem greater than it actually is, and then we're dealing with the effects or the after effects of our blowing up this problem to the extent now it's manifested in our lives. There is such thing as the very thing that you fear begins to attract to your life. It's a real thing. It's the way God's designed it. As a matter of fact, there is another verse in the scripture that says God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of love, of power, and a sound mind. So even God himself is warning us of the danger of walking in fear, because fear becomes a state of being. Even though you know there's nothing in your closet, but as long as you believe in your heart, in your emotions, your emotions will override your thinking. That's why you should never make important decisions if you are emotional, when you're in an emotional state. Because when you're in an emotional state, you're not necessarily thinking critically. But the reality is that your emotions will take precedent over your thought life. So your state of being, as I said earlier, will take preeminence over your state of thought. The things that you're feeling will take precedent over the things that you're thinking. So your feelings is actually more powerful than your thinking. Now, I say this all the time, and you've heard me say it already, that your mindset affects your assets. Your mentality affects your reality. And the reason that I say that is because the more that you think, you ponder, you ruminate, you play it over and over, and you rehearse it in your mind, eventually it becomes a state of being, which is your emotions. Your emotions gets involved, and that's literally what impacts the quality of your life. That's what impacts what you begin to manifest in your life. Because while you know the shall we say, the liturgical, or while you have the head knowledge, if your emotions doesn't line up with what you know in your mind, then what you have in your heart will override what you're thinking in your mind. So this is why you have to make declarations. This is one of the reasons why you have to make affirmations and say and rehearse and many chant, because you're rehearsing. That's all meditating is. Spending time meditating, ruminating, rehearsing, rethinking, repeating, reverberating those thoughts in your minds until it becomes a state of being, which means it has taken over your emotions, because your emotions will override your mindset every time. I mean, you can say, I'm not afraid of the dark. I'm not afraid of the dark. You can say that as long as you want, but if it doesn't become a state of being, as soon as the lights are turned off, guess what happens? You become afraid, okay? You get intimidated by the darkness because your emotions have taken over your thought life. How many times has it been in your life where you've made decisions or you've taken action based on how you were emotionally moved to do so? You know, I would not have bought that dress if my emotions hadn't gotten involved. This is why when you go to the grocery stores or you go to any store, whether it's grocery stores, whether it's to the shopping center or your favorite department store, you'll notice that at the checkout counter, they have more merchandise available for your purchase. The reason that they have those things, whether it's at the grocery store, they have the candy bar special if you go to the grocery store. At the checkout counter, well, while you're waiting, you're being bombarded with images, impulses. Buy this magazine, this pack of M&Ms, this pack of chewing gum, or this makeup product, or whatever. They're all there to affect you so that you buy from a state of emotion rather than thinking, because you already know I came in here for a particular item and that's all I need to get. However, when emotion gets involved, oh, I love that. Or a magazine with a tantalizing cover on it, and you see such and such dies or divorces or leaves or something happen, and it gets your attention. Now you get emotionally involved in the story just on the headline, just by virtue of the headlines on the magazine. And guess what? You pick that magazine up, put it on the counter, and next thing you know, you've spent more than you intended to spend. Why? Because it was compulsive. It was emotion. And that's why I say that your emotions will trump your thought life if you don't learn how to begin to transform your emotions. Tell your emotions how to feel. But that doesn't happen by osmosis. And it doesn't happen by a one and done. It's not a button sort of thing where you can just say, I am not afraid, and all of a sudden you've got all the boldness in the world. It doesn't happen like that. It has to be a continual, constant, repeating, repetitive thing that you're telling yourself until it causes you to reach a state of being. Because you will never do or have until you become. Get it? You must be so that you can do and then ultimately have. It works exactly in that order. Before you can be anything, you must become that thing. Before you can become successful, you must be successful already in whatever area that might be, whether it's finances, relationships, business, entrepreneurial endeavors. It must happen here first before it happens out here. It must happen in the unseen realm before it happens in the seen. In the spirit realm before the physical realm. If it happens in the spiritual, then it will happen in the physical first. Second. Spiritual first, physical second. Why? Because the unseen realm is a more real, can I say real reality? That might be redundant. But it's more real in the unseen realm, in the realm of the spirit, than what you see in the realm of the physical. And that's what really kind of messes people up, because they believe the things that they see in the physical is dominant. But the things in the physical are subject to the things in the spirit. So that's why you can change your natural world if you begin to operate by spiritual principles. If you begin to speak, you to declare, even though you have no evidence, you have no supporting evidence that it could ever happen, that you're going to meet someone who treats you right, who loves you for who you are, not for what you have. If you declare that, you begin to speak that over and over and declare that and believe it until it becomes a state of being, then guess what? You're going to meet someone by divine happenstance. That's what I call it. God gets involved supernaturally and causes a divine encounter where you meet someone who actually loves you for who you are, not for what you have. And so that's how, first of all, the realm of spirit works. It's any scientist who understands oh gosh, what's the science? I can't even think of the term right now. It just slips my mind. but science in general. But there's a specific um, area of science, and I say it all the time, and it just left my mind. It'll come to me, I guess, before we end this. But the point I'm making is they understand that that everything in this physical world is actually an illusion. When you consider that everything in this physical world is made up of atoms, and those atoms, when they reverberate at or vibrate at a certain frequency, they create a certain reality perceived by our eyesight, which is saying that this tablet, though it looks like a tablet, feels like a tablet, and it's a hard matter. But in reality, this is not a tablet in terms of the anatomical structure. So the theory is, this is some matrix stuff, I know, right? But the theory is, if I can vibrate at the same frequency that this tablet exists on, then I can literally pass my hand through the tablet. Actually, I can become one with the tablet because we're vibrating at the same frequency level. Okay? So that's what modern science will tell you. That what we see with our natural eyes is called the electromagnetic spectrum. What we see with our natural eyes is only 0.0035% of what actually exists. And I'm going to do a video on this very soon. But you need to understand this, because this will help you in terms of how you can operate within these principles that I'm showing and sharing with you right now. If you understand this, then you will also be willing to admit that what I see is not necessarily all that there is that exists. You've heard the old saying, there's more to life than meets the eye. The reason we say that is because we've come into the realization that there is more that exists in the world than our eyes are able to perceive. Your physical eyes can only perceive at a rate of 0.0035%. That's less than 1% of what actually exists. And we call people who can see more than that, we call them crazy, because they can see at a higher rate. So the reality is, fear has very significant impact on the quality of our lives. That's the reality. Okay? It has a very strong impact on our life, because it literally is that tower, that lighthouse that says to everything that you fear, come over here. I'm right here. Come to me. Now, fortunately, it doesn't happen overnight. It's not magic. It's not something that happens at the snap of a finger. It's something that manifests over a period of time, and the longer you meditate and ruminate on it, the more and closer it comes to manifesting in our daily life. But the fortunate thing is that it doesn't happen overnight, because some of us need to change what we're thinking and how we're thinking. Because if every thought that we think immediately appeared, we'd be in some major issues. We'd be in major trouble. And so manifestation is an issue of what you meditate on. Even the scriptures again encourages us to meditate on the words. Meditate on my words, not so that you can memorize it, but so that it can become a state of being. Okay? So again, when we see in 2 Timothy 1st chapter, 7th verse says, "For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of love, power, love, and a sound mind. I submit to you that you cannot have the power and you cannot have the sound mind until you begin to walk in love." Now, this love I'm talking about is not the kind of emotional love that causes your hands to sweat, the palms to get sweaty, your tongue to get tired and your throat swell up. And no, I'm not talking about that. That's probably more of a clinical problem than it is actually love. Love is not an emotion, okay? Let me just put it that way. Love is not an emotion, it's a decision based on logical perception, okay? Now, we've westernized this concept of love to the extent that we think that love is, the sweaty palms, the palpitating heart, or your throat swelling, your tongue swelling, you can't hardly speak because you're so in love. That's westernized Metro Goldwyn Hollywood production. That's their definition. But true love is clarity of thought. It's the ability to live in such a way that you allow people. You're not intimidated by what other people are doing with their lives, to the extent that it frees you up to live your life and unencumbered, unimpacted by the things that are happening around you. That's how I say, once you get the love, then you can get the power and then the sound mind. But actually, the sound mind and then the power. Okay, so anyway, the point I'm making is you can never get to those states of being until you deal with fear itself. Now, fortunately, while we all experience fear, we can all overcome the impact, the effects of fear. Fear has torment. It's designed in a way where if you fear it, it's going to bring torment to your life. I want to share with you another Bible story where Job in the scripture, this character Job, an upright, upstanding man, God was impressed with him to the extent that God, and Satan were having a conversation about Job. Now, Job didn't know this conversation was going on. This is something that's happening in the unseen realm. So Job doesn't know. He's going about his business every day. But one of the things that Job did was he would give alms. He would pay tithe and offerings. He would give offerings to God just in case his children may have done something that displeased God. So he would give continuously, unaware of the conversation that's happening behind his back in the spirit realm, where God and Satan are conspiring to bring calamity to his life, just to prove that Job would not curse God to his face. Well, long story short, the calamity comes. Job loses his children. He loses his cattle. He loses his health. He basically loses everything. And the story goes where Job confesses to what I believe is the very cause of the things that actually transpired in his life, and that is this. Job says, the thing that I feared the most, the thing that I greatly feared, has come to me. That's where the answer is. So when we read the text, we're reading it from a historical standpoint, but the reality is it's teaching us a divine principle concerning fear. That if you walk in fear, fear literally becomes a magnetic pull to the very things that you are afraid of happening. They will literally happen in your life. If you're afraid of falling in love because you might get hurt, then all of a sudden you're attracting only those men or those women that brings hurt to your life. That's exactly how it works. So if you understand this principle, then what you want to do is begin to walk away from fear. Begin to stand against fear and transform that fear into confidence. Not arrogance, not being boastful or high-minded, but being confident that no matter what happens in your life, you are going to come out on top. Because, life happens to us all. No one's going to live a perfect life free from pain, suffering of any sort. It's just an earthly encounter. But you're going to mitigate the level of pain and suffering by your own state of being. You have the power to mitigate, to limit the amount of frustration, anger, and angst that happens to your life based on your own particular mindset. So, two things, and then I'm gonna finish this up. So, fear has number one, the reasons why there's several reasons why you want to get rid of fear as quickly as possible. But here's one: fear has biological effects. Fear, if you're walking in fear, in intimidation, you're going to have experience a rise in your blood pressure. If you're walking in fear, you're going to experience a rise in your blood pressure. If you're walking in fear, you're going to experience a rise in your blood pressure. Well, the effects of a high blood pressure or exceedingly high blood pressure ultimately leads to having a stroke. You don't want to have a stroke, so you have to deal with fear, the effects of fear, so that your blood pressure will not be elevated, but that it be minimized, and that you'll walk at a medium grade of blood pressure. The other thing is anxiety. There's a high level of anxiety that comes with fear. You can't even enjoy the present for fear of the future. There are people, or fear of the past. There are many of us that cannot enjoy the present because they're afraid of the future. How many of you have never taken a chance before because you were afraid of losing what you've got, trying to reach for what you desire? Hundreds of thousands of millions of people live under that set of circumstances, that they cannot obtain what they desire because they're too afraid to let go of what they have. So you know the old saying, closed mouths don't get fed? But how about this? Closed hands don't get fed. So if you're not willing to open your hand and reach forward for those things that you desire that are ahead for fear of losing, then guess what? Nothing will ever come into your possession. You'll never have it if you're constantly in fear. Some people are paralyzed. You've heard the old saying, paralysis by analysis, that they're so fearful of what may happen that they haven't taken a step forward. And trust me when I tell you, if you're not moving forward, you're literally moving backwards. There's no such thing as mocking time. You're either going forward or you're going backwards. There's no in the middle. There's no straddling the fence. You're either for or against. That's just how life is. Now, there are those who would try to have the best of both worlds, but that's impossible because that's going to lead you to a level of confusion and chaos, because you can't, as they say, you can't have your cake and eat it too. So at some point, you're going to have to make a decision. So fear has biological effects to your blood pressure, to your level of anxiety. You're not going to be able to sleep. You're going to be listless, tired all of the time, no energy. And here's another effect. Number two, it blocks the answers to the very things that you desire. See, if you're an entrepreneur and you, per se, you want to start a business, but you don't know how, but you're so gripped with fear of what it's going to take to start your business or to start that venture, that you literally blind yourself to the answers that are all around you. They could be literally answers to your challenges that are right in front of you, but you're so afraid. Have you ever been in a position where you're looking for something so hard that you miss it when it's sitting right in front of you? Well, fear operates in the same way, that you can be so afraid of, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, if I do that, then this might happen or that might happen. I might have to go there. I might lose this. I might lose that. And you're so gripped with fear till you don't realize that the answer is right there in front of you, waiting for you to calm down and pay attention. The answer is right there in your face, but you're so fixated on the things that you are afraid of that you cannot see the things that you actually desire, the things that are going to actually bring you to the place of where you desire. That's how That's how fear operates. And again, I'm not saying you cannot feel the sense of fear when it comes. I'm saying that you cannot allow it to dictate your behavior. You can't allow fear to dictate how you're going to respond. As a matter of fact, the proper thing is to respond to fear, not to react. Because if you react, you're not thinking. And if you're not thinking, you're not making rational decisions. And that's why, again, I say that your emotions are more powerful than your thoughts. So now what you have to do is use your thought life. Keep thinking things that are good, things that are lovely, things that are of good report, things that are blessed or praiseworthy. Think of those things until it seeps into your heart and changes your state of being. Because your state of being is more powerful than your state of thoughts. So the things that you're thinking, you have to continue to think them until it becomes a state of being. It's like you have to continue to work out. If you want to build muscles, you've got to go in, do those bench presses, pull-ups and sit-ups and everything else, push-up. You have to continually. It doesn't happen on one session. You're not going to gain muscles off one workout. It's not going to happen. So if you're going to build muscles, you got to continue to do it. And the same thing applies as relates to your state of being. In order to change your state of being, if you're someone right now who's so filled with fear of losing because of what you have to invest into becoming something else, that you're locked, you're fixed in a one position, and you can't find a way out. Well, you start every day by changing your state of being. How do you do that? By changing your mindset, thinking positive thoughts till they come down into your heart, and it changes your emotions until your emotions have to. See, you almost, it's like you're tricking yourself. You're hypnotizing yourself until you change your state of being. You change your state of emotion, because the emotions and feelings get the results. Nobody's ever done anything simply by thinking. They have to literally embody it, feel it, have an emotional attachment to it, and eventually you see it manifest in your life. Now, this is the power. Now, when it comes to finances, if you have this disdain or fear of what it takes to get money, as they say, you got to spend money to make money. But if you are fearful of spending money because you're going to lose the little that you have, then you're going to actually lose more by not giving or spending that $10, that $100, that $1,000 when it can yield to you $10, $20, $30,000. There are people in this world that are so afraid of losing what they have, they won't invest it in something that will give them more. They won't spend $1 that will gain them $1,000. If I spend $10 for a webinar or class or something that has the potential to teach me how to gain $1,000, then it's worth investing the 2 or 10 or 20, whatever the price of admission is. It's worth it because it's going to pay me more in the end, as opposed to me holding on to this $10, $20, $30 that's going to be gone within no time. When I can use that same $10, $20, $30 invested in a course that promise a return of $10,000. To me, that's a great investment. It's even worth more than $10, more than $50. I've attended webinars that cost upwards of $1,000 plus, but it yielded me $14,000 in return. So while it was, yes, I was shivering the whole time. Is this going to work? Giving that $2,000 for admission or the cost of the course. But once I utilized the principles that I learned in that course, it brought me a return of 13. So 13,000 versus 2,000. I think it's wise to invest $2,000 if it's going to return to you 13, 14, $15,000. Just makes sense. But you'll never do it if you're afraid of losing it. Consider this principle. As long as the earth remains, there's going to be seed, time, and harvest. The world shows us every day that there are going to be seasons. Seasons for things to grow and seasons for things to hibernate, which means it won't grow. So if you're planting, I'm not an agriculturalist, so I don't know all the different things that can plant, but I can tell you that if you plant things that only grows in the summer, the spring or the summer, then don't complain when you plant it in the winter and nothing's happening, because it's not the season for it. Okay? So that's how life works. If you understand times and seasons, as long as the earth, there will be seed time, plant a seed. There will be time, chronology, and then there will be a harvest. Bang. So you have to have seed, time, harvest. That's how it works. So if you're afraid of sowing the seed of your time or your finances that has the promise of a harvest, you'll never get the harvest where you've not planted a seed. And I'm not raising an offering right now, okay? I'm showing you how to get a return on your investment, your ROI. And the world is set up in such a way that if you will sow the seed, given the proper amount of time, now you got to follow the principle. The principle works all of the time, okay? It doesn't work the same way for everyone because we're all different. But the principle is that it works for everyone, okay? It doesn't necessarily manifest in the same way, but it works for everyone. So the principle is if you sow, given a proper amount of time and attention, you're going to get the harvest. Okay? It's not magic. It's not magic at all. It's a principle. It's the divine principle that God himself has set up in the earth, that if we follow it, we will reap the rewards of it. Okay? All right, folks. Well, listen. For those of you who are watching on Facebook, I want you to do me one huge favor because I'm building up my YouTube channel. I would love for you to use that link that's in the description. Click on the link itself. Subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you click the notification button so you'll be notified every time we upload new videos. And then click the like. If this video has blessed you, click that little like button down at the bottom there. And then how about sharing it with your friends? Because if it blesses you, then it has a strong possibility of being a blessing to your friends as well. Okay? I'm so excited about this new channel. I'm so excited about the opportunity to share with you on a continuous basis through this channel. Now, Facebook, we're actually kind of transitioning over to YouTube. So all of my thousands of followers on Facebook, I want to invite you to go to YouTube and help me develop and build this channel up as we can do much more on the YouTube channel than we could on Facebook. YouTube is a better platform in that regard, okay? So make sure that you subscribe. Again, subscribe, click the like button, click the notification button, and then share, because sharing is caring. And I'll look forward to seeing you on the next broadcast of Maximum Life, Life More Abundantly. All right, we'll see you next time. Blessings.